Welcome back to the Wallace Branch, and today, as promised, we're taking a look at 1960s era architecture in Wallace's downtown. The Stardust Motel is a bit of an outlier for Wallace, but it represents a whole architectural style that swept the nation in the 1950s and 60s. In an earlier era, there were many hotels named Stardust across the US, and many of them might have been inspired by the Stardust in Las Vegas, which was famous for its Lido bar and review shows. It was the largest hotel in Vegas when it was built in 1958, which was a year after Sputnik, and it had a huge neon sign, and that sign, by the way, was given to a museum after the hotel was imploded in 2007. Incidentally, the Stardust was not targeted in either the original or the remake of Ocean's 11. There are some other Stardust hotels out there, but not in Vegas anymore, I gather. The Wallace version is in what's called Googie style, which is designed to be seen from the road and to evoke the 1960s space age. Think about George Jetson, especially the signage is in this style. Here's what the Wallace Architectural Preservation Plan says. The Googie style is typical in post-war buildings along commercial corridors and highways. Googie buildings may have unusual shapes, large neon signs, large, often canted, plate glass windows, and bold angles. Wikipedia says Googie style takes its name from Googie's coffee shop on Hollywood Boulevard, and that car culture and suburbanization required owners and architects to develop a visual imagery so customers would recognize brands from the road. Googie-style signs usually boast sharp and bold angles, intended to suggest the aerodynamic features of a rocket ship. Also, parabolas and boomerang shapes, stars, atoms, flying saucers, all of these were common design elements. The name was popularized as a negative term by House and Home magazine in 1952, and the style was common until the early 1970s. And I love it. See the great things you get to learn when you set out to model the real world in detail? This is not about trolling the DLS for something random and just plopping it down because it looks cool. Also, I like the rock walls, which I associate with mid-century modernism. I did look for mid-century modern rock faces for like a PBR texture here, but I couldn't find a good match for this one. And I love these old postcards. Honestly, I just can't imagine visiting someplace as nice as Idaho and sending people a postcard of this motel. Even if the postcard was free, which I bet it wasn't, but the logic just escapes me. Anyway, if you want to recreate Wallace as a town, can we really ignore the iconic sign of the Stardust Motel? And if we have the sign, do any of the motel assets in the DLS meet our design requirements? I would say no. The original look of the hotel was in some ways plainer than the current colors, though some parts have been painted in an ugly red today. I made my model a little bit more uniform, and I also simplified some of the back parts. I don't know what the interior layout was, but I tried to use logic. Every second floor area has stairway access, and there aren't doors that make no sense. Ventilation pipes go where I think there might be bathrooms or kitchens below. I might never think of that or look at the asset in that much detail again, but just putting the stuff down randomly might stick out later as unrealistic. So I just put in a little extra thought, quiet those inner demons. Similarly, I don't know what the surface of the balconies looks like. It could be astroturf or maybe just concrete. But given the name Stardust, I thought I'd give it some stars. I really feel like the carpet ties the motel together. And the Stardust sign I mentioned, totally crucial. I had to get the dimensions right. I had to make the colors pop. I had to put these strange stickers or painted shooting stars on. Neon flashing lights would be also a top candidate for some serious effort on lighting in a hypothetical scenario where maybe Trainz actually had decent nighttime effects. Currently in 2024, Trainz looks horrible at night, even when it's getting a little bit late toward dusk. Before the lights have started turning on, the lighting is not looking very good, so not worth the effort currently. I came over from Trainz from City Skylines, and one of the things that attracted me to City Skylines was actually how great it looked at night, and basically at every level of lighting. Also, in Trainz, it's hard to weed out the assets that have particularly bad lighting effects. Putting down lights in City Skylines was one of my favorite things, even though it seemed kind of trivial and repetitive. But for Trainz, basically, I don't even bother. So, Gloria Esteban isn't going to be staying at the Stardust Motel in Wallace. And if we're going to have the sign, I think we also need a flying saucer. There are a couple of fun walking tours of Wallace online, and the videos always comment on this public art. I wonder, how long has it been there, and what's the history? Who had this idea? Is it maintained by the Red Light Garage? Their name is on it. If this were on my property, I'd be really afraid that high schoolers would come by and vandalize it or steal it. Probably they do that in January when you really don't want to drive out and attempt to recover a flying saucer from a nearby creek or something. I hope it has some sort of GPS tracker inside. I don't know, but I think this may be trying to represent the last traffic light on Interstate 90, and maybe the red light garage is an homage to that as well. I just don't know. Anyway, I added more detail as I went along. I can't even make out what the sign is attempting to say. I had fun making it, I have fun looking at it, and this was actually my first attempt to do a sphere in Blender. For the low lot, I made a small sphere with just a pole and the sign and traffic light. Even though putting the interior details of the sphere got a little fussy and definitely not perfect, I still would say this decoration really stands out as interesting and important for the street corner. It took almost as much time as a whole building, but I consider it essential to this build. And I had to add the red light garage as well. I'm not going to show that. But yeah, there it is, complete with hubcaps and some sort of bizarre wooden rooster statue. Let's make the whole parking lot into a cafe area. I mean, this place has a lot to offer. Huckleberry pie, pizza, burgers, coffee, smokes. In my opinion, everyone should be getting off I-90 and meeting their fellow drivers, truckers, roosters, whatever, here at the red light garage. Well, that's all for today's episode on Googie Style. That was the 1960s. And as much as I was looking forward to this episode, I'm actually even more excited about the next one because we'll be leaping ahead in time to the era of food trucks and outdoor dining in the pandemic era, Wallace. Also traveling back in time to the steampunk-adjacent space age of the late 1800s amusement park rides. So get in line for your barbecued meats, like and subscribe, and we'll see you again next time on the Wallace Branch.